Hey Bowen, my name is Deb with Queer Astrology, and I'll be doing your natal chart reading today. I'm going to break into an introduction, and then I will come back with your reading. I want to start out by explaining to you how I look at astrology, and then I'm going to walk you through your entire chart, and I will give you the overarching experience of what it is to read a chart, what each of the players are, and how they all work together. How I look at astrology is that it's not an exacting science, right? It's about intention and where you might have a speed bump or have more focus in something. So when we look at your chart overall, it's 360 degrees around. Everybody has all 12 signs. Everyone has all 12 houses. In Western Placidius style that I'm using here for this reading is the most commonly used. And what that means is that the signs are 30 degrees, even all the way around. The houses can vary. In the middle of your chart, there are a bunch of numbers. If you look at the left, it starts there going counterclockwise all the way around 1 through 12. Those are the houses. You will see that they have lines going out from them. Whichever sign that dotted line hits going counterclockwise is the ruler of that house. Even if it's 1 degree, it doesn't matter. It still rules that house. Houses are the where things are happening. The signs are the attitude you're going to bring into that part of your life. Points and placements that are there, there's thousands and thousands, and we're not talking about all of those. We're just talking about a select few, the ones that people are most accustomed to discussing. They can bring an extra bit of focus. So as we go around, I will discuss all of those. The aspects, which I will discuss at the end, that is the relationship between those focus points, how they're getting along. We will walk through your chart from the beginning all the way around. Let's do this. But when you were born on November 28th, 1988, at 12:21 p.m. in San Diego, California. Your first house is the house of self, and yours happens to be ruled by Pisces. This is literally the sign that was on the horizon at the moment of your birth. So having Pisces there, it not only rules your first house, it also rules your entire chart. So the attitude that's going to bring, it's going to be felt throughout your entire natal chart, just a little bit, okay? It's your main attitude because it's the filter that everything goes through, including to the public. So others are going to see you as very compassionate and insightful, and you do have a placement here. I do want to say that. And the placement is in Aries. Okay, so you take Pisces, this very dreamy, intuitive feeling throughout your entire life. So you're always going to have this gut instinct, right? Aries in Mars, okay? Mars is your dominant energy. It's what you're passionate about, what you like to know things about, what you'll fight for, if you will. So Aries, as we know, their attitude is very fiery and instantaneous, competitive. So it's natively ruled by Mars. So you're going to have that double kind of energy. You're going to come across very passionate and energetic, nonstop energy, and you probably get bored really easily. As we move over to the second house, your second house is ruled by Aries. And that means that you're quick to assign value to things. As soon as something happens and you feel as though that's something you should value, you'll assign a value to it. You'll want to have a steady input of that because you'll need to feel as though you're growing in your value, that you're competitively beating others in finding things that are of value before other people do. Okay, so you will find other people in relationships because value is the second house. I feel like it's a deep part of relationships. And I'm going to talk a little bit of the thread of relationships throughout your chart since it's something that you're very curious about. And if it's things that you value, so you value having a little bit of competitiveness and you want them to bring stuff to you that you don't know because it's going to help you learn about it. So it's a new thing to value. If you can have input from not just yourself, but also another person inputting different things to find value in, you will love that. Third house is ruled by Taurus, and that's the house of communication. That means you're going to be very practical, slow and steady with how you communicate. it might take you a long time and you will be very steadfast in what you're saying, and feel as though whatever you're saying, you have thought about it so much that it's right. And anybody who has something else to say about it, they're wrong. So just keep that in mind. You might be a little stubborn with your communication, in other words. You have a placement here, which is actually the placement of expansion, and it happens to be in Gemini, which natively rules the third house. So Gemini is a very communicative planet. And in it being native here, and then in the planet of expansion, Jupiter, that I feel actually holds people's hidden talents. Okay? So this says to me, you are a deep thinker. That's going to even feed your stubbornness with communication more, because you really think things out and you're very intelligent about how you communicate. You'd probably be very good at any kind of legal stuff, and I'm going to get more into this. This is just my first intuitive reading here, but into like legal things, or an editor, more than necessarily the initiator of the communication, but the bow tie, or the finding the deep thoughts and inner workings of what you're trying to communicate. And you're really good at making sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. Gemini also rules your fourth house, and your fourth house is the house of home. So this means you're going to really value external communication, external processing in your home life, communication, thought, and it's going to be important for you to have that kind of flow at home. You will never feel satisfied in a place where you don't have a voice. It is very important for you to be able to have a voice and feel as though everyone else that is in your domestic life also has a voice. When we go to the fifth house is ruled by Cancer for you. Now, Cancer, in the house of creativity, is the fifth house. This gives you a very feeling of comfort and empathy in how you create something. So if you're going to create something, you want it to come off as being very this is what I'm getting. If you have something complicated that you have to get across to somebody, you're very good at creating an atmosphere where it's much more comfortable, and it's much more, it feels affectionate almost. Dare I say, you can give bad news easily and creatively, but you're very good at comforting with how you do it. So when we get to your sixth house of routine, yours is ruled by Leo. Leo is the creative sign. They're grand in their gestures. They like appreciation, but not just because, like the adoration for doing something. So if you have Leo, that means that you are going to be very independent in your acts of service, but you are going to want people to see it. That you're going to want some adoration for, like, man, that was really great how you did that. It was super creative and fantastic. Like, you're going to need to have that feeling of you don't mind working your butt off. You're very independent about it. You don't need anybody's help. You just want people to see it, right? Now, add a placement there, the moon. That's the planet that rules your emotions. So having a Leo moon makes you very creative and extremely magnetic in your energy. You're really great at grand gestures. So if there's some sort of routines that are happening, you're very good at making sure the routine is done correctly, but then you can spice it up. You can give it that pizzazz. And it's because you are emotionally attached to it, so you can get deeper into it and find out how your routine can connect with other people emotionally. I also want to point out that this is the house of health, and having Leo rule your sixth house gives you an indication that you should look out for ill health in your heart or circulatory system, major arteries, or your thoracic spine, which is the lower part of your spine there. And Now, that doesn't mean that you will automatically have or do have any of these health problems. It just means if something does ever come up in that particular area, go see somebody about it. Don't mess around with that one. Don't be like, like you might do for some other ailments. That one is going to be important. Now, let me talk about the 7th house of relationships, and yours is ruled by Virgo. And that means that you are going to be very analytical in your relationships, okay? So Virgo is also ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of communication, but the dark side of it, okay? Virgos are very hard on themselves. They're internally communicating with themselves all the time. Whereas Geminis, who also are ruled by Mercury, they're externally communicating. So when we talk about Virgo in your relationships, you want to feel like things are purposeful. That you have some sort of routine in your relationships that makes you feel as though everything's okay. Because Virgos tend to be very anxious. So they want to have that's why they like to have the facts and be grounded in things as an earth sign. In your relationships, you're going to want to feel very grounded and very connected to that person, as though they're part of your inner monologue. That's how you're going to feel safest in relationships. You also have a lot of Libra. Even though it doesn't rule your house, your 7th house of relationships, this is its native house. So you have this feeling of need for balance. You want to be able to do your internal work, but you also want your partners to be doing their internal work. And then that's how you still want to be independent, but blended together, if that makes sense. As blended as you can be independently. Now, let's talk about the 8th house. All right, because your 8th house is ruled by Libra. And the 8th house is the house of taboo, power, sex, rebirth, things like that. And it means that you're going to be very reasonable and fair with any of your positions of power. You're going to be very wanting to understand where other people are coming from in the areas of taboo, whether it's tarot or astrology or sex, or anything that seems like we shouldn't talk about, because you know the power of transformation and the balance that comes from transforming. You do have 2 placements here, but in the native ruler of this house, Scorpio, it's going to bring you the extensive ability to transform. How? How should you transform? Well, it's showing you that you have your surrendering planet of Venus here. What I mean by that is Venus shows you, it's your bottom energy. It's the kind of energy that you would like to be able to surrender to. This is the part that you feel like if you can have this, that's true love. This is the undercurrent. You are going to surrender to devoted passion, because Scorpios, the attitude that brings is this attitude of seeking the truth and wanting transparency. So you're going to extremely value that. And if somebody is very passionate and transparent with you, that is going to make you feel like you can surrender that. It's going to make you feel safe enough to give in to letting them have some of your power. Now, you also have the generational planet Pluto in Scorpio in the 8th house. That's a trifecta. What I mean by that is Scorpio rules the 8th house, which is also ruled by Pluto. So they're all native right here. That just means you are the ultimate at transforming. So I feel like whatever you're doing in your life and in your relationships, you want to make sure it's moving towards making you a better person, transforming you into a better person. And you're going to look for contentment through healing by transforming either other people or yourself. When we move to the 9th house, now 9th house, yours is ruled by Scorpio, and that makes you very mysterious in your adventures and in your educational pursuits. But you're going to look for transformation and truth in your adventures and in your higher learning. Like to explore dark and secretive places. You have 2 placements here, but they're ruled by the native to the 9th house, Sagittarius. Mercury, which is the planet of communication and thought. So in Sagittarius, it's going to bring you this ability for quick problem solving. And you can use your experience in order to educate educate yourself and others on how to solve problems. And then you also have your sun here, which is your ego. And your ego is going to be directly connected to your adventures and your education. You're going to find that it's valuable to have knowledge and information from the kind of experience that you've had and from the education and even the kind of faith that you've put things in and understood. The 10th house, which on the cusp of your 10th house, everybody has what's called the midheaven. It means middle of the sky, literally. And it means your ambition, your peak of performance. It shows us about your career and your ambition. And it represents your accomplishments, your responsibilities, and even your public standing. It's 180 degrees down from that, which is called enum coli or IC. This is the root of your ambition. This is where your ambition stems from. And that is your hidden potential. Your midheaven is in Sagittarius, meaning that your ambition is going to be directly attached to how you, to your experiences, to your education, to your faith, and how you're growing. And it's going to be based off of Gemini's IC, which is going to bring you this curiosity, but indecisiveness. So you're going to use that indecisiveness and that curiosity and go out and experience things in order to make decisions based upon your experience, education, and faith. You do have a 10th house stellium. What the heck does that mean? A stellium is 3 or more placements in the same sign or in the same house, because what it means is just a little bit of an emphasis and an extra focus, right? And having it in the 10th house, that means you're going to have a little bit extra intelligence and quick wit in your ambition. 3 points of your stellium, another generational planet. By the way, the generational planets, there's 3 of them, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're just in orbit for about, 7 to more years. So a lot of people within the same age as you will have that similar planet in that sign, but not necessarily in the same house. So Uranus, this one is in Sagittarius for you. And Sagittarius, that means that you're going to push things beyond the limit. You're going to push boundaries, especially against anything that is very traditional. You're going to push past that. You're going to want experience to judge that more than tradition. Saturn and Neptune are the next 2, and they're both in Capricorn. Now, Saturn is in its native house here and also ruled by the native Capricorn, meaning you are going to have a little bit of a fear in justifying your ambition towards being a role model. But having that kind of capacity allows you to be able to do pretty much anything you put your mind to, because you also have Neptune there. And Neptune in Capricorn, that's going to give you this feeling of you can see things that are coming ahead. You're very efficient at it, because Capricorn's very efficient about what they're doing, and Neptune is that planet of dreams and intuition. So you're going to be able to see what's coming and then use your experience from your Sag heavy, use that and your education and your faith and mix all of that together and put all of that into your ambition. So for me, again, it sounds like, I don't know what you're doing, but in this area, it sounds like you should definitely be talking about your experiences in some way, shape, or form. And you can pretty much do anything you want as long as it has some sense of rebellion, but you're still grounded in it. Use your experience and your understanding from your education, and you can't go wrong, okay? Hold on to that because you're very grounded here. As we move to the 11th house, this is your social house, the areas that you might like to rebel in. Yours is ruled by Capricorn. Capricorn's very efficient. They're very structured. You're going to have structured ideals, especially when it comes to social things. In fact, you're going to be aggravated if somebody is not very efficient with how they are putting together a social group or things like that if they're not very efficient in it, because you feel as though it's taking away from the purpose of the group. You will like to have ideas within groups, but you will want to execute things as an individual. You'll be very independent in how you execute whatever the chore is, if you will. When we move to the 12th house, which is your subconscious, yours is ruled by Aquarius. Aquarius is the alien of the signs. It's an air sign. They're work hard, play hard. They're the rebels. And so you have it in this area of intuition, meaning that you're going to find it hard to keep to traditional ideas because your intuition shows you better and you know better. And your intuition is telling you to rebel. I'm going to break away to give you the intro to the aspects, and I'll come back and talk about yours. Talk about your aspects. I'm not going to talk about every single one of them, but I want to give you an indication of what they mean and how you can find out more information about them if you want to. Aspects are the relationship between points. It's how they interact with each other. Now, you want to look up any of these, natal, N-A-T-A-L, because there are natal and there are transit. If it's in your chart, that's natal. You can find out more in-depth information on any of these that you're curious about. So conjunction is 0 to 10 degrees. That is blended energy. You almost can't even tell them apart. Now, when you're reading this, you can read it as the actual focus for each. As an example, the Sun conjunction Mercury would be ego is blended with communication. That's going to give you mental acuity. To sextile as an example, 60 degrees apart. So 2 signs apart. This is cooperation. They're like best friends. They're skipping down the street holding hands, if you will. See that your love is best friends with restriction. It also has your love is best friends with your dreams. So you're just going to want reasonable love because of that restriction. You're not going to want to be too flighty, yet your Neptune wants you to have a storybook life. Square is 90 degrees apart. These are more in conflict, okay? They're literally squaring up to each other. So as an example, if you have your ego that's squaring up to your public filter, that could give you relationship blocking issues. And specifically about success, you're going to feel like you can only be successful publicly or with yourself. That's not true though. Okay? All these squares are things, they basically are speaking to your insecurities. It doesn't mean that they are facts, okay? So any of those squares, look them up and work through them. That will help you understand different places of your relationship. Like there's the Mercury square, your filter, your communication square, your filter, which is going to give you this coming off as arrogant a little bit and having some difficult self-expression, things like that. So if you work through those, it'll help you to understand how you're being seen by other people based on your insecurities. A trine, these are in sync with each other. They're literally like the band In Sync. They've got the dance moves, they're doing their thing, but they're totally independent, right? When they're the same element in this case. So trines are like in the flow of things. So if you have your ego flowing with your emotion, you're going to have spontaneous good fortune. If you have your ego flowing with your passion, you're going to have a naturally creative talent, okay? Now, I do want to talk about the fact that you have quite a few psychic placements, including the moon trine, your MC, which gives you this, it gives you this emotional gift, so very empathetic. There's a lot of different kinds of psychics, and yours tends to be, it feels like emotional. So learn how to protect yourself, maybe get some black tourmaline. And as an empath, learn how to separate your energy from other people's energy, okay? That's my suggestion to you because you are very emotionally attached and empathetic. My favorite is opposition. Opposition is 180 degrees, and that is a push and pull. This is the kind of friction that creates action. And so if your ego is pushing and pulling with your expansion, your ego is like, I can do this. And then your expansion is like, oh yeah, watch me do this. And they kind of go back and forth. And then it looks like, I do want to talk about this one because Mercury in opposition to Jupiter. This indicates that you might want a lot for a little. Meaning you're like, hey, I did this, why don't I get something back? Just take note of that. It doesn't mean that that's always the case, and clearly by some of your other placements it's not, okay? But note that other people might feel as though that's what you're doing. You have a grand trine in your chart, and yours is a grand fire trine, which signifies achievement. And with grand trines, it's they're the same element, and it's either going to bring a harmony to something or a wastefulness of something. Either waste your achievements away, or you can be the utmost in achievement. Chiron, which is this little key shape here in the fourth house, it is the wounded warrior. It's your childhood wounds and things that you need to change and grow in order to heal who you are and some of your deepest wounds, your childhood wounds. And yours is in Cancer, which means in particular, you have a wound of nurturing. You are very good at making other people feel extraordinary and amazing and comforting them. But you will feel guilt for underperforming. You feel guilt like you didn't do enough for that person. And you're leaving yourself out of it. And it comes from a place, because it happens to be in the fourth house, which is actually native to Cancer. And it means you had a lot of abandonment when you were a child. And so you might have a feeling of not feeling worth somebody sticking around for you. And it could also mean that you end things with other people before they can end them with you. And if you do find anybody, I also do synastry readings as well, and we can look at where your charts lay. The things you value are similar, how you communicate is similar, and then you're balancing each other out in a lot of ways. That is the key to a good relationship. And honestly, for me, it feels as though you're a little bit married to your job. You have a lot of active area up in the top part of your sign, which means you're very about your ambition and your standing. And so you're either going to want a partner that can come along with you and just kind of assist along the way, or literally be right up there with you, like one or the other. Thank you so much. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Don't hesitate. And yeah, cheers.